it's like I say, if we had a chance to, get our education and said have our voting rights, we don't have that good yet. So at that time, if that hadn't happened, we'd have a better chance of life.
Mother Randall, a lot of young people talk.
Hey guys, sorry about that. Hey, third eye. I think, yeah, my audio, it's all over the place. Added all these different audio devices and I still really haven't gotten it out, but I'm doing a task right now. I happen to be taking a quick lunch. It's been a crazy morning. I've been at it, man. As y'all know, since really early, actually. I was up with y'all like 3 or 4 o'clock this morning, but then I had some work to do. And now I'm taking a little bit of a little lunch break. So I came across this video, along with the fact that you already know that what to expect here. But I seen this and I just had to show this because, I mean, I have not seen it all the way through, but I'm just like, no way, right? There's this guy named Lamont at Large. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but he's got this really interesting YouTube channel. And he has, gosh, 400,000 subscribers or something like that. Let me put Replay Gang on here. And his videos are just so interesting. Like, and he has a lot of type of content that I would most definitely tune into, but I digress. Let me screen over while I'm sitting here looking at some additional anomalies. Hopefully this won't give me the same problem I was having this morning. I know we've got a snowstorm coming in. It's supposed to be picking up. You know what? I did see that it was Groundhog Day, but I don't know if he's seen his shadow or not. We should actually research that. That stuff's really true. We should actually look that up. That's getting cold. I keep plenty of tea and stuff like that on deck, but for some reason, I just wanted to get me some of that Arizona. I like Arizona, especially the fruit punch, the watermelon, the grapeade. That's probably about my favorite. But yeah, hold on. Let me see if I can get this to stop. I don't know why this is clocking. I was just connected before I maybe I should stop sharing the screen and give it a try. Maybe that'll do it. I don't know. We'll see. Not going to be on here too long again. I'm just on a really quick lunch. Let's see here. Okay. We're continuing the trial. Oh, he passed away, but they say on Facebook. Okay, so basically he's seen his shadow. So spring's coming early. Huh. That's what's up. Like it seems like maybe I need to like reboot this box or something. So strange. I'm on the right Wi-Fi, damn it. Let me go on the guest one though, just to be thorough. We had a pretty hard winter last year, you know. This year has not been really too bad, so that would make sense. Let's see, huh? All right. Just really gonna do this? I got time for this shit. Like seriously, nobody has time for this shit. That's what's up. That is what's up. Y'all, let me mute myself real quick while I try to fix this and do some things. I don't know why today of all days, it's been nothing but issue after issue after issue. Hey, Centel, babe. What's up with it? Hey, it's one of those silent types. I'm just doing some, I'm on a little break and I'm going through one of these souls is all. And it's kind of clearing the mind, preparing for another few hours of pretty heavy duty work. So, but definitely finding some very interesting things for sure in this particular photo. No question about that. Anyway, y'all, I'm going on silent.
So I am at a cemetery. I don't want to give the location of where I'm at. I'm in Las Vegas. I don't want to disparage the cemetery because sometimes we all make mistakes. And I see something very disturbing. I don't know what the problem is, and I don't know what happened here. But I was walking, and I seen this. There obviously is some kind of a problem with their drainage system.
My God.
It appears to be blood mixed with embalming fluid.
Oh.
And it's dripping all down.
Whoa. Now, I was saying, oh, you can't hear that? No shit. You got to be able to hear that because it's playing through the laptop. And I can hear it in my headphones. Try adjusting your other device and tell me if you're able to hear it or not. Who knows? It's always something. The sound has been, let me know for sure though. But yeah, like this guy Lamont at Large, he does these weird ass videos, and you may see him doing one at a famous celebrity's like tombstone or something at their graveyard, and he'll go into the story of what happened, like he did the one on the guy from Jackass and all that type of stuff. But I've definitely been subscribed to him for a few years, but to come up on this, like, are you serious?
So I am at a cemetery. I don't want to give the location of where I'm at. I'm in Las Vegas. I don't want to disparage the cemetery because sometimes we all make mistakes. And I see something very disturbing. I don't know what the problem is, and I don't know what happened here. But I was walking, and I seen this. There obviously is some kind of a problem with their drainage system, but it appears to be blood mixed with embalming fluid, and it's dripping all down the wall of the mausoleum. I was going to call the office, and I probably will Monday because they should come and clean this up. This is not cool. I would hate for a loved one to come and have to see this.
But look at the dates. The dates are like 86.
So I don't know if it's not properly vented or the casket failed, but yeah, this is what happens when you have something go wrong at the cemetery in the mausoleum,
huh? Oh my God, that's horrible. Damn, that's really fucked up. All right. That's really, really fucked up, man. Anyway,
Suckers keep on down.
I'm taking my audio out, y'all.
They know they should be crowning me. Yo, school walk. Discount. Discount paper.
She says I am trash, but she listens to Tekashi. Bitch, you lost me. Yeah, fair weather, wishy. Washy. She thinks machine washed me. Swear to God, man, her favorite rapper wish she crossed me.
They then presented that symbolic form that I was converting the block letters into their letters on a half a page, and I could read the whole thing. So that was a phenomenal turning point. I went, my God, I can read 50 pages of text and I can understand the whole thing in a half a page or less than a half a page. Then they put it in something the size of a 50-cent piece symbol, and where you would look at the symbol in a flash, and you'd get the whole 50 pages. They could take that symbol and present it in front of your face, and here it was, the abbreviated form of the symbols that I was learning. I later learned.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what the deal is with all the audio issues, to be completely fucking honest, and I don't even give a shit. So I'm just gonna like mute that shit.
And what do I mean by
because
that?
that's annoying as fuck to
George,
me.
when you have a thought, or when I have a thought,
It's like my
or if we a thought
connection
be a
is
sentence in
being
our mind,
metered.
our brain waves
So anyway,
jumping up
but
and down,
I'm not going to be on here
scattered
much longer
throughout our
anyway.
mind,
Sure, there, yeah.
and not in necessarily in order. So if I were to say, "Hi, George, how are you today?" and you were to say, "Hi, Jim, how are you today?" If we got a reading on it, it would be scattered in all different orders. Nothing would be the same. But what I learned was that by taking these block letters and putting them into a symbolic form, you're focusing or concentrating the energy, unbeknownst to you in this learning process, in a simple, strong energy form, meaning that, let's say that the letter A was simply a line from the right to the left to the right. You had to draw over the line 3 times, 1, 2, 3. Now, if I'm focusing that 1, 2, 3 in my mind, any sensitive receiver won't pick up as many scattered brain waves, all over the place. It'll start picking up a pattern. And then, of course, it's computerized into, that means the letter A, and someone that has a receiver on the receiving end, it picks up that, and then it translates it to the letter A in that other mind. Even my body sometimes would vibrate back and forth to it. Over time, I began to realize they wanted me to use this symbolic form versus the just plain telepathic form to communicate with them. Now, here we go with the reward sessions. Now they're getting better. If I would ask a question and I wanted the question answered, then I would have to do it in my mind in that symbolic form that I learned, and then they would respond telepathically in kind. So it got to the point where they can download, or upload, I should say, into a human being massive amount of data, massive amount of information in a real short period of time, because we're capable of that. We just don't have the sequence as a rule.
Did you have to be the receptor, or could they just send it into you at will?
There was a couple of ways. Fascinatingly enough, as the receptor and consciously aware of it, you can sense all of that information like a vibration going. But I know that sometimes even my finger on that table would move profusely in exact order to the sentences and letters of all those symbols put together. So even as my right forefinger was on that teaching machine, it would vibrate and move to that data, and I would understand it. As the years have progressed, I know that I can have interaction in a very short, brief period of time, and then they can upload a ton of information into me without me being consciously aware of what the information is. But later, it unwinds sort of like a reel-to-reel tape, and then the data slowly unwinds where my mind can comprehend it. But it's a long story, or it's long or large amounts of information. That's what started to happen in those first 6 years. Now, again, I was paralyzed. I wasn't allowed to be let loose, but the reward sessions became pleasant. And the reward session started to have some meat to it, or understanding, still not knowing what these guys were doing, still not knowing what these guys were up to. When it came to the semen extraction, instead of me fighting them and warring with them, I just let them do it, and I got to go home quicker. But then, as I said, cool things started to happen.
Did you ever feel threatened at this point?
When one is around this energy that they radiate, which is miserably uncomfortable, or you do feel the sensation of that it could kill you. But what I've learned, and this is what I tell people, George, is that you're not going to die from this stuff. It's extremely intimidating, but you're not going to die. What you're learning through this process is what it's like to be around these otherworldly beings face to face, up close and personal. And the average person being thrown in that situation isn't going to be able to handle it. So there's a lot of things I can share because, as I mentioned earlier, they're telepathic, they screen image, the technology is thought activated. These guys travel dimensions. They can go from point A to point B anywhere in the universe with no time passing. And they're light years ahead as to what you may think they are technically. It's phenomenal what they do.
Do they bend space and time for traveling?
I can tell you this, that if they had to go from here, point A being this solar system, to point B at the outer reaches of the galaxy, you're just there within seconds. But when it comes that there is something interesting, I don't know if it's a bend, but what I do know, that there's another type of travel is where they use other dimensions, meaning that they create a field. They do this a lot, George. It's some kind of a field. There's a distortion in the field. And matter, as the laws of physics as we understand it, no longer apply. Matter behaves in a different way. That's why they've been seen walking through walls. So these guys, for example, when they go from one dimension to the other, you can be, again, at a very distant point by simply literally walking through. Now, what are they doing in that walkthrough process? They're creating this field. You can see it. It's a distortion in the air. You're in it. It alters your matter. It alters the matter around you. You literally walk, and you're walking through walls, and you're at different places at different times. Now, what I found fascinating during those periods, which were not as common as the point A to point B and blacking out and you're there, was the fact that I could see different entities and different things that lived and existed in these other dimensions. There was never interaction between them and whatever these entities were, but they were there as we passed through. So they
did you ever see reptilians or the praying mantis type beings?
Right around the 7th year, is when I had my first interaction with what are commonly referred to as reptilians, because I had scales.
Scales and scares.
Yeah, man. And actually, there's over the years I've interacted, or they've interacted with me. It's not like I had a choice, with 3 or 4 different species, 4 different species of what are commonly referred to as reptilians. And I can see why a lot of people think there's abductees that think they're bad because there is a species that's not quite nice. Mm-hmm. And then there's others that are just phenomenally human in almost every way, shape, or form, but they're just so extremely highly intelligent with a lot of information to share. But see, this is a process. And now, towards the end of the first 6 years, things started to change again, and it started moving forward, unbeknownst to me. I always said all I ever wanted to do was kill them. And
they knew that. Even if you were thinking it, they knew that.
They knew it, George. They knew that if I was bent set on killing them or tearing up the ship. And I was always paralyzed, and I screamed it out. I made up cuss words for those guys. You let me loose, I'll kill you. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. And so even as things started to progress, sessions concerned, I didn't so much verbalize it as I still had that animosity in me. It's like, you came into my life out of nowhere. I didn't want anything to do with this, and I'm still part of this process, and I feel like I don't have a choice. Now, interesting things started to take place. I had been pulled when I got to my room, that same stinking room. And then, by the way, I've mentioned how the air is circulated in that place. It's when you're in the room, the air is fresh, and it can go 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, and it gets hot, moist, humid, and hard to breathe. And then all of a sudden, there'll be a blast of cool, fresh air. So intermittently, it wasn't like being on a jet airliner. The way they did the rooms or the atmosphere on board was you suffered through some stale air and relieved by a blast of fresh air. So unfortunately, it wasn't a continuous basis. So
was that for them or you?
For me, for humans.
Right.
So unfortunately, a lot of times you were sitting there sweating, dirty, oily, and uncomfortable. So even just being in that with all this tenseness and pressure and otherworldly things around you, it was quite intense and quite uncomfortable. But an interesting scenario took place. I had gotten pulled. When I got there, I blacked out. I came to quickly, and I found myself on a gurney, and I could smell my saliva or your, I don't mean to sound gross, but if you were your saliva doesn't smell good if you were to spit, okay, like a normal thing, or somebody were to do that to you as a child or whatever. But it was, what was coming was a vapor was coming out of my lungs.
All right, hold the thought, Jim. Hold the thought. We'll be right back on Coast to Coast AM. Next hour, we'll open up the phone lines. You can chat with Jim Sparks, and we'll be back with him in just a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast to Coast. Jim, at any point, did they tell you if they seeded us in the beginning?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. Throughout the, particularly in those first 6 years, I used to yell at them, why me, why me, why me? And they answered the question in a way that answers your question. I had been in a session that was quite tenuous, rather extreme emotional experiments, and I did well. So when it was time for the reward session, I was adamant about why are you doing this, or why me? And they answered this way. First, something equivalent to a hologram appeared, and it was a World War II scene with Nazi Germans and Italian Axis power soldiers. Two officers were making war plans in a war-torn village guarded by Nazi soldiers. And as I looked into their faces, I could see a family resemblance. So I picked up right away, George, that was some kind of tracking of my family line at that point.
Right.
The next scene that appeared was around the late 1800s, turn of the century, and it was a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a factory. What country it was in, I'm not sure, but I guessed it mostly the United States. Men were in top hats cutting the ribbons. One of the faces looked like one of my family members. See, it's odd how they answer questions. It progressed back to around 1300 to a medieval village, fishing village, and I could see myself in the field or something that looked like me. Not reincarnation, just family with crude farming instruments, farming some vegetables. It kept going further back. It got into the Roman period, and all these things are true because my lineage and heritage is of that time and period. My family line goes back to Rome, 2,000 years ago, and I could see myself or something similar to myself or a family resemblance sitting at the bleachers while there was a debate going on in the early democracy, you could say. Okay, then it jumped radically to what looked like, and this made me angry, by the way, and you'll hear what I said. It looked like, George, the African savanna plains. There were these creatures in these plains that were ape-like in appearance, but they weren't chimpanzee or looking apes, and they weren't human-looking, but they were a cross, something I had never seen before. They were
maybe what Bigfoot could look like?
Smaller, though. Now, Bigfoot is something that, Bigfoot is like a worker bean that they use to haul stuff around. When they come here, they they do control they have the power to control the mines, and they use whatever is available for labor. And I'm certain that that's one of the beasts that they use literally to help them mine or whatever laborious tasks that there are that the little beans can't do.
And they leave it here.
Yes, but I think Bigfoot has been here. What I believe is that they use Bigfoot for these things throughout the globe, because Bigfoot is everywhere. But these things didn't look like Bigfoot. They were agile like we were, but they were ape-like in their appearance. And now, during the course of all that, George, there wasn't any telepathic messages. They were just letting me see scene after scene. But when they got to that last one, they clearly said, we manipulated these beings to make you what you are today as a human being. Genetically, and that was the word. Now, I was angry about it because I didn't want to accept that as being so. I didn't want them to think that they were my keepers, so to speak. And it screamed, that's a bunch of lies, and I don't believe it, yaddy-daddy-daddy. Well, I now know. There was another scene that had come up, which I thought was extremely fascinating, and I've never publicly talked about this one. So you get to be the first on this.
Here we go. All right.
There was even another part of the globe where many, many, many tens of thousands of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, they came in mass, like a dozen ships. They were there to mine. They hovered over the planet. They literally exploded the area that they were going to work in to kill anything that was around it to create a perimeter for safety. And in those beams that were coming down and things that were exploding over the earth, and you can see this in hologram form, it just took my breath away. I intend to write about this in more detail too. I'm writing another book, but anyway, after the area was cleared and safe and they landed, they built a perimeter around it, almost like a wire. Okay, now picture this one. They're in this thing that's like a camp, and then sneaking in through the woods come these ape-like creatures that looked like the earlier ones that were curious. Now, fascinatingly enough, one of them had a weapon and was about to blow away one that was peering almost over that perimeter that they had put there. But there was one fascinating aspect of it. And the other one grabbed his arm and stopped him from shooting it or killing it because it had a smile on its face. And I'll never forget that hologram of these ape-like looking creatures behind it that didn't express any sort of emotion, but this one was childlike in its nature. He was leaning forward towards the perimeter, and you could see a smile, like almost like a baby or a child. He was curious. And the other one,
maybe the genetic altering had been underway.
It could have been.
Yeah.
It could have been. Now, I know they used us in those early years as what the worker beings are now through these things that I've seen. And I like your take on it there because it did express an emotion on its face. So, again, now things are evolving here a little bit. Even though I'm resistant, George, other things started happening. As I mentioned, I was on this gurney. There was this vapor coming out of my lungs. I had no clue what it was. But then this extraordinary thing happened. I woke up during a procedure. When I came to, I was back in that room, where the table and the bench and all that stuff I was mentioning to you earlier was. And this time I was standing up and I was leaning against the table. I had gotten pulled. I was leaning against it and I had physical mobility. Now that was the first time in years that I had ever was able to stand up. I'm by myself in this room and I'm looking around and I'm looking at this place where light emanates from everywhere, but yet nowhere specifically, where that stinking bench was, that stupid teaching machine, still calls it all that kind of stuff. Here's the screen and I'm moving around and two of them come into the room holding a black box, about the size of a shoebox, only perfectly square. It wasn't rectangular. Absorbent black box. And they came walking up. I looked at their eyes. I looked down on the floor. I looked at their eyes. I looked down at the floor. I didn't want to look at their eyes. They walked over to the table. They put the box on the table. Now, I'm astounded that I can move around, and now I have the freedom, if I wanted to lunge forward and beat the crap out of these guys.
If you wanted to, or to take the box or do anything you wanted.
To do, it was in me like, I know how to behave. Don't do that, Jim. See what they're up to, man. Don't do this. Don't mess this up. It's like the being you're a prisoner for all these years, and now they're giving you some little freedoms here. Privileges, but major to me. They took the box, and I'll never forget one of them. He took it, he pushed it forward in those bony, thin fingers as he pushed the box forward towards me. And then I just said, "What the hell is that?" I'm a person. That's the way I talked. And they go, "It's a gift for you." And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do with it?" And they do with it as you will. And then they turned around and they walked out the room. I looked at the box. I didn't want to touch it at first. I didn't know if it would shock me to death. I didn't know what it would be. And I touched it with my finger. It didn't hurt me. And I picked it up with my hand, and I started turning it around in all directions. It just was a square, perfectly square box, absorbent black. And so I started pulling on it to see if it had a lid, and it wouldn't open. I started pulling real hard, and it wouldn't open. I took it, and I wedged it between my feet. on the floor, and I was pulling hard, and I couldn't get it to open. Then I grabbed it with my hand, and held it over my head, and I was about to smash it on the table. And this telepathic voice said, "You didn't try opening it gently. Open it gently." And I went like, duh, to myself. And so I took it, and I just barely put pressure. I put my hand around it, and I started pulling on it, and it opened.
Popped right open. Huh?
Right open. Now, here's what I didn't expect when I looked in it. It's all these surprises. First thing when I opened it was it smelled rancid. This horrific, horrible smell. Inside of it was about 3 or 4 inches of thick black tar. And the best way I can describe that, it looked like asphalt tar that they would put on your roof when it's hot.
Yeah. Okay.
And there were glass tubes sticking out of it of all different assortment and sizes, almost like test tubes, but they weren't. They were just tubes in it and sequence. Well, it's almost like alchemy. I later learned that later. And I went, what the hell kind of gift is this? It smelled bad. What the hell is this? And they said, it's your gift. It's your gift. We extracted it from your lungs.
Oh, my God. Was it a tumor?
No, man, I smoked like a chimney in those days.
Jim.
I smoked, and I don't know if you've ever smoked, George, but
No, I never did.
Thank God for you. Thank God for that. I mean, because I've gone back and forth with that in my life. And at that time, I was really a heavy smoker. So they extracted all the garbage out of my lungs. Things are evolving now.
Oh.
But phenomenally enough to me, I made up that word, phenomenally. Phenomenally enough for me, I got to see a technology, and it's had me thinking to this day. And I know if I were to ever team up with the right people that understand things like this, that they somehow can vaporize matter where it's gently removed, like as if it were a tumor. In this case, it was tar and garbage from my lungs, and it vaporizes, and it's attracted to those tubes in that box. So it just slowly is extracted from the body without being intrusive.
And then it forms again?
It's gone. That's right. Now I can tell you a little bit about what I've learned about implants. I'm going somewhere I don't normally go either. Something I was going to write about I am writing about, but you've heard of abductees having implants.
Yes.
Well, what they can do is they can beam a pattern into the flesh, and whatever the instrument they want it to be. Let's say they just want it to be, I'm going to make it simple, something silly and simple. Let's say they wanted an instrument in you that could pick up your brain thoughts or your voice thoughts, okay, and then transmit out to a receiver wherever they are. There's enough elements in your body. There's enough raw material in your bloodstream for conductivity, whether it be the mercury, whether it be the metals in the body, because when they beam it to a certain part, let's say they want to put it in your calf, or they want to put it in the back of your arm or the bottom of your arm, and they point something that's almost like a laser. You really can't see the light. It goes inside, and it instructs the inside of your flesh to start gathering the materials necessary to literally and biologically build this implant for whatever they want it to do. So there's enough metals, there's enough conductive materials, there's enough minerals, there's enough in your body to make a little working apparatus that has feelers that go into the flesh from the inside, and there's enough electrical power in our body to power it. So that's why they're not making incisions from the outside. They're not things that I've seen that I can explain. That's why there's no bacterial growth, or the body doesn't reject it, because it's stuff that's already in your body. Now, when you go under surgery and they try to cut these things out, like you've read and stuff that they do, it immediately makes them inoperative. In other words, it takes all the whatever the raw materials from the body it used to extract. It's an exacting detail to make a working diode or instrument. It balls it up in either to something that might be a little piece of metal, something that might be a piece of another material, where you can't really figure out how to work the thing. So it solidifies it into something solid. So when you cut it out, it makes it inoperable. So it's a pretty cool technology. Again, it's advanced. So they're not necessarily slicing you open, sticking the thing in there, and sewing you up. They're actually creating it within the materials within your body. So these are the things, I started to see. And these are some of the things I picked up. Now, I had this newfound freedom. I blacked out again, and I went the hard way, and I got home. Now, things are evolving even further. I get pulled again, and this is all within this 6-year period.
Always in bed?
No, I could be driving in my car. God, one time when my wife was with me, we were driving in the car, and at times they would manipulate her to get me to do something. We were driving along, and my wife wasn't violent or crazy like this, but we were driving at the time I was married. And she said, "Pull the car over, Jim." And I said, "Why?" She said, "I said, pull the car over," which was not like her. So I'm still driving like, "What are you talking about?" And she started screaming at me, "Pull that car over," and grabbed the steering wheel. And the car was swaying on the highway. And, it, of course, it scared me. And I pulled the car over. When I pulled the car over to the side, that loud whirling whipping sound, Teresa slumped into the seat and blacked out. That loud whirling whipping sound came into my head, and that sensation I told you being pulled, and I got pulled. So no, not necessarily when I'm laying in bed. That's a fact. I could be sitting up watching television. I could be laying on the sofa. I could be sitting at the table. But a lot of it did happen between the hours of like 2 and 4 in the morning. But it always stood to reason to me why, because if you were going to be studying wild lions in their natural setting, are you going to go study them or try to abduct them or tranquilize them while they're feeding in the middle of the day, or are you going to do it when they're asleep in their little coat?
Exactly. Was there a point, Jim, when you started to realize, what are they doing with me?
Yeah.
What do they want with me?
But that's what this is leading to, because another event took place where I got pulled again, and now I wasn't laying in this, paralyzed in this room. I was in another room, and I was standing up, and it was like, wow, I'm standing up. Here I am again, and I'm not going to mess up. So all that the hatred and with focused anger was concentrated on, what are these guys up to? So I'm standing up in this room. There's 2 gurneys, and two grays walk in and telepathically said, "Could you please lay in this gurney?" Now, that was another first, George. Instead of being paralyzed and finding myself with semen being extracted and all these other things, they asked me to do it.
Right. They wanted you to just willfully do it.
Do it. And I said, okay. And I did. Now, they did screen image something that looked like something I enjoyed at first to prompt me to do it. But I don't need to go into a lot of that detail, but they screen imaged it to look like a gaming table in Vegas at first, like I was going to play dice or something. It was really crazy. And I shook that one off because I've learned how to shake off the screen imaging. I just cooperated and I laid on the table. Now, in that session, and this was not uncommon, here's what the screen imaging that they would create. You're laying in this bed.
Your detail, by the way, is absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you for that. And I told myself day after day, hour after hour, week after week, month after month, year after year, that I was going to memorize everything I could. And I went over and over and over it. They would not allow me to write those first 6 years. I was not allowed. If I went home and wrote down anything that I experienced, you know how they would punish me when I got pulled again?
What would they do?
I would be in that room. I would be sitting in that chair paralyzed, and they would ignore me for hours. And towards the end of time to go, they'd go, "You're not supposed to write anything down." If I wrote down a symbol, if I wrote anything later, just when I would get back home, they would ignore me for hours. That was the punishment for doing it. But one day, towards the end of the 6th year, which I'm about to lead to, is when they said, "Go ahead and write." And I did. But leading to that, here I am in this room. And they tell me to lay in this gurney. Now I'm laying in the gurney, and this is a screen image. I'm laying in the gurney, and it's almost as if I'm in a bedroom and I'm laying on a bed. I'm on my back, and I'm propped up at about a 45-degree angle, like one of those beds that can, electronically come up a little bit.
Sure.
And the door opens up, which I should have known was phony because doors don't open up on board. But I went along with it. And 2 of the most drop-dead gorgeous women that I've ever laid my eyes in walk into the room. Gee, what a coincidence. They happen to look exactly like what I think would be perfect, right?
Sounds like the movie Weird Science. You concocted them yourself.
I guess I did. I never saw that movie. And another thing I must tell you, and people that know me, is I've dedicated myself to not watching movies, since this has been going on, anything associated with the science fiction, the alien abductions scenario, and read little to no of others' material, only not to cloud my experiences and to keep it separate.
Jim Sparks, they're lining up to talk with you, but I still have a few quick questions here. At what point did you pick up on the message,
Sure.
what they wanted with you?
It was when they realized I wasn't going to kill them or tear the ship up. There was a mass abduction. I had found myself in a clearing in the woods. There was a pile of people standing under me, about a dozen or 15. To my left was two more piles of people with a gray standing in each group. I was standing up. They were in people that were prized. The first telepathic message to me was calm them. There was a guy standing up. He was able to stand. There was one other than me standing, but mostly paralyzed. And I was telling him he was going to be okay. He was going to be fine. The sickness or the nausea his feeling will pass. That he was feeling will pass. There was a woman laying on the ground, and she was in the fetal position rocking. And I put my hand on her shoulder, and I was telling her she was going to be fine, not knowing what was going on, because here again, you'd get no advance notice, at least in those days, as to what was about to proceed.
Sure.
I went into a little bit of detail as to what they did with me, and then the next telepathic voice was, no, you're telling her too much, just calm her. I calmed her. And it was an overcast evening. The clearing in the woods was about the size of a football field. There were three lights glowing in the horizon. They were ships. One, real quick, came over my pile of people. The second one hovered real quick and came over the second pile of group of people. And the third one came over the third group of people. When it descended through the clouds, the one over my group descended first. Everything was orderly. I saw for the first time what one of their craft looked like from the outside. A beam of light, a white, bright beam of light with a hue of blue, cast itself over myself and my group of people. And then a white beam of light came out of the second and the third ship over those piles of people. That was a mass abduction. That was a gathering point, or one particular gathering point for a mass abduction that ended up having nearly 1,000 people on board. It was phenomenal. When the light was beaming out and I was looking at the craft, it was spherical. It had a dome on the top, but it had an egg-shaped droop on the bottom of it, and around that egg-shaped thing were windows. This is where I started seeing military personnel and these abductions as they later went on, military personnel working with grays, not hiding their faces from me, a lot of them with rank, telling me the story. But anyway, in this particular scene, this is where it all started opening up. As that light beamed down, I walked forward from that pile or group of people, and I had my arms in the air, and I was just screaming out, "It's beautiful, it's beautiful. They're all beautiful." And then I blacked out. When I had regained consciousness, I found myself in a corridor with all these people that were on the ground standing up. They were zombie-like. And the next telepathic instructions to me were, lead them. And in front of me in this corridor, when I took a step, the group of people took a step. When I stopped, they stopped. So whatever I did, they did, and they were completely out of it. They were mostly naked or in their night clothes, so you could see that these people were pulled while they were sleeping. The corridor opened up to this humongous room about the size of a basketball gymnasium. It was lined up with rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of monitors, hundreds of them. At the end of this room were grays, military personnel scurrying around, messing around with instruments, mass abduction. The next telepathic instructions to me were to seat them. I took the first person that was near me and put his hand on top of mine, which was on top of mine while I was walking the group anyway, and went all the way down to the end of the one row, sat him down in his cubicle where there was a monitor, not still knowing what the hell these people were up to or these beings. As I started walking halfway back, I stopped to look. Again, I wanted to see what the hell was going on. So I started looking at everything in detail, the human beings, the grays, like, what is going on in this place? And then the telepathic voice strongly said, no. I kept looking, and it kept going, no, no, one-word commands. I disobeyed. I blacked out. When I came to, I found myself seated in front of a monitor, and several hundred people, up to 1,000, during that blackout period, were seated in front of their monitors. The room lit up in one glow, so you could tell that every monitor was had the same visual on it, like going to when they sell televisions and there's 20 TVs in the glass window. You could see it was all at the same time. There was a hum. And by the way, I should mention that there were lines hooked into each one of us, either in our calves or it was hooked into the back of our arms, which I think explains a lot of scoop marks. These lines were feeding something into us to make us extremely attentive, extremely emotional, and extremely attuned and alert to color and emotional stimuli. But there was a reason for it. Now the pictures started coming into place. The first scene that appeared on all these monitors was just a drop-dead, gorgeous, beautiful Earth scene that absolutely took your breath away. It was the ocean. It was blue as blue could be, turquoise blue. It was teeming with fish.
A pristine planet.
Yes, the air was like perfect. And all you could do, no matter who you were, even if you were a non-emotional individual, from what was hooked into you and from what you've seen, and you knew that that was from way in the distant past, all you could do was go, God, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You almost wanted to cry with its beauty. There was a hum, a 3-second blackout on the screen, and then another Earth scene would come up. And I remember the second one specifically. It was mountains in the background with snow on the top of them, beautiful trees. It was a gorgeous lake. And again, you're just going, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And it was one beautiful Earth scene after the other, after the other. Then the Earth scene started getting ugly, where the ocean was beautiful. It was a dingy gray, where the fish were teeming and alive, filled with energy. They were bloated, floating on top of the water. The air was polluted. And the reverse happened to you. But as each one of these uglier Earth scenes started appearing, the telepathic loud in your head said, as each scene came on, you're killing your planet is dying. You're killing your planet is dying. When I blacked out towards the end of that, and I hated it. Of course, everybody that was watching it hated it. But what I didn't know at the time, what I do know now, because I've seen these things many times over, is they're enhancing your awareness of the condition of the planet, what it was, where we're going, and what you can do when in the globe when it reaches critical mass as to solve the problem. There is a plan, there is a solution, and there is a way to do it. When I regained consciousness again, I was in this thing akin to a locker room. And in this locker room area where clothes were sprawled all over the place, people were moaning and groaning and crying because whatever tubes they had stuck in their arm or whatever stuck in their calves of their legs just scared them. The telepathic instructions to me, again, were to calm them. And I was walking up to different individuals saying that, look, any cut or any wound you get on board here heals fast. The memory is taken away from all these, the physical memory of what took place is taken away except for what was ingrained or enhanced and implanted in these people's minds. On a more humorous note, before the end of this experience, mass abduction, the telepathic voice said to all of us, nobody leaves, and I'll never forget, it was funny. Nobody gets to leave until they find their exact clothes. Well, you've never seen so many people switch from gear from moaning